Our lives are layers of stories and experiences. These experiences are imprinted into our lives from culture, the country we're born into, the family we're born into, our peers, and our religion. So, this also impacts our financial stories. And today we're going to have a chat with Matt about his experiences growing up in Australia and the money stories that were imprinted into his life. Welcome, I'm your host Chrissy from The Change Curve, and today I'm introducing Matt on screen with me.
Hey.
Growing up in Australia, what are some of the money stories that you've observed and found affecting your life?
Well, I suppose I need to go back to where the money stories for me started. As a kid, I grew up in a typical, I suppose, I wouldn't say middle class. We were probably closer to more fortunate from a financial perspective. Dad was on a good financial wicket. Mum was a stay-at-home mum and worked odd jobs here and there, did things of interest, but wasn't required to be out of the home like most families are today. So I was fortunate enough to be able to go to a very good quality primary school, and the plan was for me to go through to a rather exclusive high school as well afterwards. To be honest, I'm glad that that wasn't what eventuated, because I know quite a few people who went through those two schools, and the versions of them compared to what I've been able to grow into as an adult, I think are very different. There's clear distinctions, and I think a lot of that came down to the world that they grew up in and the experiences they had. I was exposed to different experiences as a result of my parents separating when I was about 8, 9 years old, and then transitioning into a different life experience. But back to the basis for the money story, there's some really formative experiences that I had that stand out to me in relation to like where the programming was set and the sort of messages that I heard consistently. I remember asking for, it might have been, soft drink, lollies, chips, or something like that as a kid. Very clearly in my head, I was playing in the Cubby house that my dad had built for us. Double story. It was pretty epic, but it was a double story Cubby house. Like, it had a loft and all that sort of stuff. He really did a solid job. And we're out the front of it just playing, and I remember asking for this stuff, and I got told, I can't, we're broke. So at a very young age, and I might have been 4, I had learnt that if you're broke, you can't get things that you want. Then there were some other experiences that I'd had where I think a little bit later in life, but still, in that same sort of family dynamic at that stage, where I was told that my brother was better with money than I was. He could hold it longer, but apparently it burnt a hole in my pocket. I'm not sure where the relationship with money and me holding it had formed, but it's interesting reflecting on that as something I came to identify as an adult growing up a little bit later in life, more so in my teens when I started working and I transitioned from pocket money to I had money that I was earning. And I had this sense of freedom that came with that and liberation. It was really quite empowering. But the term that was used to describe what would be left over after I had paid for what I had to pay for was that money was disposable income. So energetically for me, there was an alignment there that caused a bit of an awakening, where I suddenly became much more aware of why my behaviors were the way they were, why money was burning a hole in my pocket, because what was left over was disposable. And as I really sat with that and began to evaluate the impact of it, I came to realize that if I'm treating it like it is disposable, then I'm going to dispose of it. But if I'm treating it like it's discretionary, I'm going to be more discerning and make better choices. So I think they're probably the most formative things for me as far as the elements of the money story.
Let's dive into that a little bit deeper. You mentioned that you experienced a time in your life where you felt that any money that was left over was disposable, and therefore your mindset was more catered towards spending it on things that you probably didn't need. And then once you started to get a different concept in mind about your money being discretionary and its value proposition changed for you, how did you feel at the time when you started to understand the difference between disposable and discretionary?
It's interesting. I don't think that there was any like on off switch or a light bulb moment. It was something that I sort of grew into, and I recognized over time that things had changed. When I was probably in my mid 20s, I was working with a company and I got absorbed two or three other people's jobs as a part of restructures with what they'd done. And the long and short of the story was I was earning about $34,000 and I had a company car, doing quite a lot of hours, but I was on a salary. I had a chat with the owner of the business and the manager I reported to, and I said, look, I feel like I should be asking for a pay rise. And all I was seeking at that point in time was another $3,000 a year. It wasn't a lot. So it was going to be the difference between having anything left at the end of the week and not having anything left. It was a bit weird. I was on a fortnightly pay cycle, which I'd never had before. I'd had weekly and monthly. Fortnightly for me was a lot harder to manage because at times I would get lost and I would forget that the pay had been deposited last week and it wasn't due again this week. It was due again a week later. Where that really had some major consequences for me as far as sitting with the feeling of having the flow of cash was I had pretty much been conditioned, I believe, into when a bill comes in, you pay it and you clear it. You get rid of those outstanding amounts as quickly as possible. I wasn't leveraging timeframes and paying things when they were due. I would have a gas bill come in that wasn't due for 4 weeks and I'd pay it straight away. I'd have a water bill that wasn't due for 2 weeks and I'd pay it straight away. And I would have rent that was due consistently. Now the rent was pretty easy because that was paid when it needed to be paid. But the bills when they came in, dealing with them that way for me, and I'm thinking more about the planning of spending here. It took the water out of the well a lot quicker than it needed to go. And it meant that by day 7 or 8 in the pay cycle of a 14-day pay cycle, I'd be looking at my bank account and in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I get paid again tomorrow or the next day. No, you get paid again in another week. I'm then trying to figure out, okay, groceries, how do I deal with this? Because we're, running low. There were times where trying to figure out how do we get enough together to be able to put food on the table and make sure the dog was fed as well. It was a really challenging time. Now, it probably is a little bit more peripheral to your question there, Chris, but I think the behavior that I had at that point in time was one where I hadn't actually put in place some sort of structural plan to be able to make sure that I knew what was coming in and what was going out. It wasn't until I started to do that, and what I was forced into doing just through pain more than anything else, I had to hit the wall a few times to get this lesson, was I built in my my calendar recurring appointments for when certain things were due and certain expenses were upcoming. And I would set them up so that they were a week or 2 weeks earlier than when they actually would occur. So that way I was forcing myself to operate with more of a runway and I would have more money in the bank. So I think that for me was probably one of those moments where it wasn't so much about the message that someone had shared so much as the lessons that life throws at you. And, I'd had the feather on the cheek, the tap on the shoulder, and then I had the brick wall that I ran into. It, it literally was the running into the brick wall and the hard lessons that brought that caused me to really reflect and evaluate things. I transitioned away from having 3 jobs at that point in time to scaling back to just the one. And it was largely because I was planning more than what I had previously. And I was being more discerning about how I was spending the money I was spending. It wasn't that I was blowing it on stupid stuff. I was just being more deliberate with when bills were paid and how planning was implemented. I never liked the word budgeting. I always hated it. It actually caused a bit of a gag reflex for me at that stage in life. It was something that was more of a disciplinary mechanism than a planning technique. So, yeah.
So, based on what you've shared, I'd like to suggest that if you're experiencing some challenges managing money coming in versus money going out, maybe set up a system where you've got an operational account. So everybody has expenses that they know are going to come out every single month or every quarter or every year. So for example, you may have a rates bill which comes out quarterly. You may have your insurance for your car that comes out annually. So rather than being shocked or find yourself with no money at the end of the pay cycle, set up an operation account and put 50% of your income into the operational account. And that way you've always got extra money sitting there for when those bills are due. As a bookkeeper running things from an accounting process, we never pay things based on when the invoice comes in. It's always based on the due date. So I personally prefer to always pay it the day before it's due. So if on the statement it says that it's due on the 20th of June, I will pay it on the 19th. The reason for that is because banks are still a little bit slow with some of their processing, and it may leave my account on the 20th, but it may not land in your account on the 20th, depending on different banks. So here in Australia, we've got the big four, which is CBA, ANZ, NAB, and who's the fourth one? Westpac. Had to think for a moment. And so if you're transferring funds from NAB to Westpac, it may not happen straight away. That's just my rule of thumb. I always pay it the day before. The balance of the 50% that you've got there, 20% always goes into savings and paying off debt, and 30% goes into lifestyle expenses. So consider that it's not a perfect budget. I personally don't really like budgets. I prefer strategic spending, and the reason for that is that it gives your money the focus that you have based on your value system. Obviously, everyone's different, and there are loads of different ways to do budgets. The way I tend to do it these days is a lot more flexible in that we will evaluate our expenses every month. So rather than having a strict budget, because we've gotten to a point where we don't need to be as strict with ourselves because we've gotten into a good habit, we now review our expenses every month and we look at things and go, okay, well, look, alcohol is probably a little bit up there. How about this month we try to dial it back? Or we might choose a cheaper option. So rather than buying, I don't know,
$20 bottles of wine, we're going for $5 bottles of wine.
yes, that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider is if you're frequently stopping in at the service station and every time you fill up your car with petrol, you're buying yourself a coffee and a pie. That coffee and pie might cost you $10. Are you buying it out of habit, or are you buying it because it's lunchtime and you now need a meal but you haven't prepped anything in advance? So thinking about these type of things can make a big difference to your life. And if you're doing things out of habit that are costing you the long term, I always ask myself, are the decisions I'm making today taking me closer or further away from my desired outcome? And so when you think about your money, maybe use that question and look at it and go, well, maybe I should make my own lunch and take it to work rather than going to the cafe and spending $30.
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that as a pain point where bad decisions were made. And I'm not saying bad for you, but in my circumstances, looking at where I was, they were not good decisions that took me in the right direction. There'd be times where I'd be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to rush out the door to go to work, and I was due at work at 6. It was a 45-minute drive, and I knew that 15 minutes I needed up my sleeve for traffic. So at times I would swing into Macca's in the morning first thing, and I would grab hotcakes and a coffee or something like that, and I would wolf them down in the car park and then go to work. That sort of thing, again, that was just like really bad planning. And I've found that, it wasn't a good choice as far as a dietary option goes, but transitioning away from that to doing things that I could prep the night before and then just grab and go. And I still had that contingency of I need to get to work, and traffic in Melbourne can be horrendous. So I had things like overnight oats, and I could make a coffee once I got to work. So I could sit there and I could have that, and it wasn't impinging upon my ability to do what I need to do. But it really gave me more flexibility. Yeah, look, there are good and bad spending choices that are out there. I don't think it's anyone's place to tell someone else whether it's good or bad. It's up to you to reflect on it and figure out whether it fits in your life or not, and then you choose the label.
I definitely do not feel that anyone should be in a position where they completely abstain unless that's where they feel they need to be in order to sort their lives out. I really enjoy having a coffee, but I don't buy a coffee from a cafe every single day. We may go and grab a coffee, once a week, once a fortnight.
Yeah.
And that change for us made a huge difference because at one stage we recognized for our budget that we were spending quite a significant amount on bought coffees. And when we made the shift, it was quite profound when we reflected on our spending habits, how much of an impact that made to our lives.
Mm. I remember when we did reconcile or rationalize that decision because we'd gone to Nespresso. This is not a plug for Nespresso, but hey, if you want to sponsor, go for it. You know how to get in touch with us. We decided to buy one of the machines, and we figured, well, $10 for a sleeve of pods, and that's going to give us 10 coffees. That was 1.5 coffees at the cafe. So I think the big loser in that circumstance was the cafe around the corner from where we lived at that time. We were going down there sometimes twice a day. I think
It adds up.
it adds up. It might have contributed towards hitting their bottom line a little bit, but it put us in a better position. So I'd agree. But what I did notice was that our coffee consumption habits, because we had the pods in the house,
They increase significantly.
yeah, it went from 2 coffees a day to 4 or 5. So again, it's a better financial decision, in my opinion. However, from a health point of view, I probably should have been having more water.
That's true. You still need to drink more water.
Mm,
All right, guys. Well, we hope that some of these concepts help you. Obviously, everybody's money stories are a little bit different, and there's a lot of sayings like money doesn't grow on trees. Everybody's a bit different. Everybody has their own experiences, which are largely imprinted onto us from early age, being from our family and our culture, the country we grow up in, and then later in life, it's our peers, the friends we hang out with, their families, and in our religion, our school, they all impact us in different ways. And so your money stories are going to be different to our money stories. So, what I would encourage you to do is maybe take some time to think about some of the things that you've learned throughout your life that are impacting you in both positive and negative ways, and you can discern what that means. I'm not going to tell you what's right or wrong here. You're an adult. You need to take responsibility for the decisions that you make. I think that taking the time to evaluate where is my head at and why am I doing the things that I'm doing, they're all going to contribute to you making better decisions for your financial future. So I'll leave it with you. And if you have some feedback for us, please feel free to leave some notes in the comments below. We've also got some great resources there to support you, like our financial fitness tracker, debt snowball spreadsheet, and financial terms glossary. So jump down into the show notes and grab whatever you feel is going to help you get your financial journey on the road. I'm Christine. Thank you for joining me on the Change Curve. If you're new to my channel or returning for some fresh insights, welcome. We're glad you're here. Until next time, thank you for joining us on this adventure for a life of freedom and abundance through financial literacy. Till next time, bye.
bye.